You're listening to the Well Woman podcast. I'm your host, Jema, women's menstrual cycle educator, natural fertility coach, and daytime mermaid. This is a place where we discuss all things periods, poo, ovulation, fertility, and sex. Join me weekly as we rediscover our menstrual cycles, unlock its superpowers, and guide you back into your cyclical nature. This is episode 180 of the Well Woman podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are talking in this episode all about menstrual cycle productivity, like syncing your work and life with your cycle. Like, how do you do that? So this episode is actually really important for those not just in business for themselves, but also those who have careers, work, study, mothers, you name it. It's really for everybody. Now, the reason why I think it's for everybody is that your cycle productivity and how you change your productivity throughout your menstrual cycle actually increases your productivity. So if you feel like, oh my God, I can't get things done, or this is so hard, I can't take it off my to-do list, this is an episode that's going to be really beneficial to you. So understanding cycle productivity really begins with understanding your menstrual cycle. Now, I'm not going to spend this whole episode going through the 4 phases of the cycle, understanding each of the 4 phases. You can go back to the other episodes that we had earlier on in this Reclaiming Your Cycle series and learn more about them there. But what we are going to look at is, well, what kind of productivity do we have in each of the 4 different phases? So when we look at inner winter, because it's the best place to start, let's face it, inner winter is a really great time to stock take. Now, regardless of whether you have products and you're in your own business or not, it's a good time to do a stock take. So what I mean by that is looking overall at your life and going, okay, well, what did I do really well last cycle? What went really well in my business last cycle? What went well in my study last cycle? What went well in my job last cycle? What went well in my household last cycle? And explore what really did go well and what maybe didn't go so well. It's also a really good time to start envisaging what your next cycle is going to look like. So for me, yes, I do start my new cycle tracker as soon as my bleed begins or on day 1 of my cycle, but it's also a great time to open up a productivity cycle tracker. Now, if you don't have my productivity cycle tracker, you can actually head to the Well Women Academy and download it there as a member. And this particular tracker is really great because it identifies what productivity in each 4 phases best is applied based on what your work schedule is or what is on your to-do list. So when we look at winter, yes, we might also be doing a stock take, but it's a great time to look at, okay, well, what's coming up for me over the next 4 to 5, 3 to 4, 3 to 5 weeks? What is occurring for me? Like, for example, for me, I could sit down and I can go, all right, over the next month, I've got these podcast episodes to record. I've got these client meetings. I've got this interview coming up. I've got these graphic works I need to get finished. I've got these meetings I need to have with my team. What are they? I write them all in and I go, okay, I need to move this into this week because I know based on what my cycle history is and my own cycle flow and rhythm, where I might ovulate or where I might begin my luteal inner autumn phase or where I'm going to be really good in my inner spring phase. So once you know the productivity flow of your cycle in your inner winter time, this is the time you want to do it. Take the quiet cave-like atmosphere to sit with yourself. Pour yourself a nice cup of tea. Make yourself an amazing cacao, mushroom tonic, warm milk, whatever it is for you. And actually use that space of quietness and connectiveness and intuition to plan out your upcoming cycle. So that's what your inner winter is really structured for when it comes to productivity around your life and your work at your menstrual time. Now, a lot of the time through menstruation, some people have the dream of like, I just wish I didn't have to work. I wish I didn't have to go to work. I wish I didn't have to turn up. I wish I didn't have to parent on these days. But life happens. So how can we create a balance on these days during our menstrual inner winter time? I strongly recommend every day you find at least 10 to 15 minutes for yourself. I'm not asking for the whole day. I'm not asking for you to go book a 2-hour massage, whilst that might be really good. I'm just asking you to find 10 to 15 minutes. Is that first thing in the morning? Is that over lunchtime? Is that after the end of the day when the kids have been fed and have gone to bed? Where is that time frame for you where you can actually sit with yourself, allow your intuition to flow? Because if we don't allow space to sit in a seated practice, we don't always truly hear our full intuition and what is ultimately guiding us. So I strongly encourage you to do that in your inner winter time. That will help you feel supported for the rest of your cycle as well. Because if you're pushing yourself with all of the tasks you've got to do during your inner winter, I do assure you this will lead to burnout at another stage of your cycle. So rest and inward time, even if it's only 10 to 15 minutes a day, is really beneficial. Next, let's move into inner spring. So inner springtime of our cycle, when we're looking at productivity, is all about creativity. So for me, inner springtime is where like, okay, I can record reels, I can record videos, I can record podcast episodes. I feel like out there, I feel blossoming. This is also a time where I like to sit down and go over my upcoming marketing schedule. Okay, what emails do I have coming out? What topics do we have coming up on the podcast? How can I structure everything and intertwine it all together? This is the time I feel really creative, and these tasks aren't hard. That's the biggest thing. You're looking at things in each phase of your cycle which aren't hard. For example, if you ask me to do my bookkeeping whilst I'm menstruating, that's a really hard task. If you ask me to write newsletters or to write a blog post or to write an article, like a guest feature article, and I'm doing it before I begin bleeding at the end of my inner autumn, it is literally like trying to drive sticks through rocks. It's just impossible, and it takes me twice as long. However, and I'm sure you know what it feels like, right? You know, when I sit down to write a newsletter, sometimes they just flow right out of me. Other times I'm like, this is so challenging. Why do I even write weekly newsletters? Speaking of which, if you're not on my weekly newsletter, head over to my website, wellsome.com, and you can jump on my weekly newsletter drop that comes out every Wednesday. So if it feels like you're forcing a task, maybe it's not aligned in that right time of your cycle. So your springtime is when I feel creative and I feel like I can actually plan and structure and put things together. That's what my springtime is focused on. My inner summer, your inner summertime, regardless of ovulation or not, because maybe you're on a non-bleed cycle and you're using the full moon for this particular inner summer phase, this phase of your cycle is all about planning, being seen, and launching. So inner summer is about putting yourself out there. So generally I like to plan launches around my inner summertime or around that window. I like to plan interviews or turning up to other guest featured speaking spots or speaking in person events. Sometimes even I have the ability of structuring events in person, like my own workshops, for when I'm in this outward phase. Now, this outward phase energy of summer, when I'm presenting and turning up, it helps me really shine. It also really helps me give my energy to others, not just to myself, because I have extra capacity at that time. Now, often I have sometimes had my events turn up when I'm premenstrual or menstruating, and I have capacity, but the capacity style is different. I'm more inward at those events. I'm more reflective as opposed to fun and quirky and all over the place. And that's a reflection of my productivity. So your inner summertime is really about putting yourself out there. So I want you to think in terms of your business, career, conversations, lifestyle at home, relationships. Productivity-wise, this is about launching, putting yourself out there, having the conversations that might be more challenging. For example, asking for a pay rise, turning up and, putting forward a presentation. These are all times that you are going to shine even more so during your inner summertime. Now, as we move into our luteal phase, I've already spoken a lot about the luteal phase in previous episodes of this mini series, Reclaiming Your Cycle. A lot of vulva owners and menstruators fear inner autumn. They think it's the PMSy style, challenging, awkward, confronting time of their cycle. However, I'm challenging you on that because inner autumn is the time of my cycle where I really feel I can get so much done. I literally call this in my courses inside the Well Women Academy and Cyclical School, the get shit done phase. Like, I'm getting it all done. And I'm getting it all done because I'm harvesting and collating everything so I can ultimately rest in my winter. Now, hormonally and biologically, our mind at this time is more articulate. So it's a really good time to do book work. So think about like your bookkeeping, your finances, actually replying to big, long emails, sending out emails, being really on point, or something that you really need to use your mind and your brain about. This is a good time. In my household, this is the time I'm like, babe, we are spring cleaning the house this weekend. And he's okay with that sometimes. Sometimes he's like, no, we're not doing that right now. But for me, that's when I have the energy to do that. So spring cleaning is not always designed just for the season of spring. We're talking about our inner seasons here. So autumn is articulating, allowing yourself to get stuff done. This is a good time for prepping. So prepping work, prepping meals, prepping movement, finishing off your schedule so that you've got some space when you're menstruating to really tune in and relax. So I trust this has been a really great overview, simple, concise, and manageable way for you to live more cyclically with your productivity in your life and your work and your hobbies and your business. So just take 1 or 2 points out of this episode and start to implement them. What phase of your cycle, this is what I would suggest, is what phase of your cycle is most challenging for you? What do you find most challenging? Let's just say it's inner autumn. I want you to explore in your next upcoming inner autumn how you can structure your productivity to support you in that time. Don't be the one that's sitting down trying to create a really quirky newsletter that is just going to be like pushing shit up a hill. It just is going to be so much more challenging for yourself. So what else could you do that structures your routines and your productivity schedule so that you can place that at another time of your cycle that's going to be more beneficial and empowering for you? So I encourage you to explore all of that. Really tune in, connect with your cycle, live in a cyclical way, and then apply productivity throughout your menstrual cycle. Thank you so much for tuning into every episode of the Well Woman podcast. For everything we mentioned in today's episode, you can find this in the show notes over at wellsome.com/podcast. If this episode excited you, please hit follow on Spotify, which means all of my episodes will pop up in your feed weekly so you never miss a weekly drop. I'd love you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts too. Love this episode? Come and follow me over on Instagram at wellsome_Jema. Say hi and share what you've taken away from this episode with me. Now, is there a bestie, sister, or a friend who you know who might be fed up, frustrated, and confused with their cycles? Are they ready to join you in awakening their cyclical essence too? Well, take a screenshot of this podcast episode, share it on your socials, email it, text it, or any way you need to get it to them. So together we can all live in flow, harmony, and balance with our cycles. Now, until next time, beautiful, get connected, listen to your body, and remember, body confidence all begins with living in tune with your menstrual cycle.